Welcome back to Franco's World, episode 76. Today, very interesting episode with a very interesting comic. They are much more intelligent than myself, so I'm excited to talk to them, and they're going to take me down a peg, which is always good. Brittany Cardwell, everybody. Brittany, how are you doing?
What's up, Franklin? Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. I'm very excited to talk to you. Where can people follow you at?
People can follow me on Instagram mostly. It's at brittonuscardwell, brittonuscardwell.
And,
I'll be
and if
posting
you're in the
more stuff.
greater New York area, you host a couple shows that are pretty good.
Yeah, I host two shows. One's on Tuesday at 7 o'clock at the Tiny Cupboard. It's called Ambush Comedy. That one's really fun. I run another show with Claire Alexander every Saturday in Bushwick or somewhere in Brooklyn, usually in a backyard or on a rooftop. And that one's called Drool. And it's like a mostly women lineup.
It's funny stuff. It looks like funny stuff. I follow the Instagram account. Claire is I'd consider her a good friend. She's a sweetheart. She's helped me out a lot. And those tiny cupboard shows, all of them, no matter who's hosting or what type of show it is, they seem like they get a good crowd. So that's cool stuff.
Oh yeah, they do. Tiny Cover's like the new comedy cellar right now. I don't know if people have said this to you already, but it's like one of the main places where comedy's happening all day, every day in New York.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
been really
I've seen a handful of people, run shows there or be on there. I had May Plannard on a couple weeks ago, and she
oh
has a
yeah.
show
Okay.
there.
Yeah, and then Drool is like this. It's kind of nice. I love the Tiny Cupboard, but we also love having like a different venue, and it's a little bit smaller and more intimate. So it's usually a crowd of like between 30 and 60 people, rather than at the Tiny Cupboard where you can get hundreds if you want to, and you can still be socially distanced there. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, it's been really fun. I'm so surprised how much outdoor comedy is going on still. Like it's becoming the
yeah.
winter month. I was surprised when I got back to New York in at the end of June by how much was available. Because I got back thinking maybe there's going to be one show I could do a month or something. Maybe I'll get invited once a month, but
Right.
it's actually I'm like busier now than I ever was before the quarantine.
COVID comedy. Who knew? Who knew COVID
Yeah,
comedy was going to be on the rise like this? I mean, what do you think?
I
What do you think
know.
is going to happen now that New York is kind of shutting down again? What do you foresee?
Well, here's what's happening already. Some comedy shows are going inside, which I don't really think is a good idea right now. I mean, the cases are going bad.
Ooh.
The comedy shows are still going inside despite like everyone knowing that the cases are on the rise. So I think that's going to stop pretty quickly, like within a month. Venues aren't going to be having their shows inside.
Yeah.
Um, my shows, we're going to try and keep them outside for as long as we can. And
If
then
I don't
we
see
might
you,
go
if I don't
back
see
to
you in a blizzard, if I don't see you in a blizzard, you're not committed enough.
yeah. I know. We should be like the mailman, right? Like rain or
Rain,
storm or
snow,
whatever.
sleet, or shine. Right, you're out there. I said that to a mailman once in college. I was walking to class, and it was like pouring rain, and I was like, "Hey, rain, snow, sleet, or shine." He goes, "I hate this job."
You think everyone says it to him on a rainy day? Like they
You
think
know what?
they're
That's a
making the
good
rainy
point.
day better, and it makes it worse every time. Like every rainy day, he hears that 50 times probably.
He's just like, "Oh my god, I hate this job." I cannot believe it. He said that.
Yeah, it's kind of like I don't know. That reminds me of you probably get this sometimes because you're a comic. You know how people they'll be like, "Oh, you want to hear a joke of mine?" How often do people try and give you their own material, and then it's not
How
even their material?
well, people I can definitely tell people, like, try to ham it up. People will try to, like, bring it, and it's like, "Dude, I'm literally sitting here watching a game with you. I don't this we're not doing this isn't live at the Apollo, okay? Please don't give it your all today."
Have you had this situation? I don't know if your coworkers know that you are a comic, but I've had this situation where like I'm in like a really serious meeting at work, and someone will say something they think is funny. Like they
Oh,
obviously were
boy.
trying to make a joke, and then they look at me for a few seconds, like they're like awaiting my response. And then I always ignore it because I'm like, well, it's usually not very funny. But also I'm like, guys, we're in a place of work and we're trying to like have a serious thing. All I want to do is leave this job so that I can go do open mics right afterwards. So let's get through the meeting. It's just funny because it's like they think I always want to laugh and that everything is going to be funny, but I'm like so serious at work.
You don't give him a sympathy laugh?
No, sometimes I do if it's like really desperate, I'll do it.
Oh, I mean, I'm guilty of it, and I know I really shouldn't be like this because, laughs are kinda like currency, but it's like, I'll be at a mic and this guy's bombing, but there's something out there that's, like, okay,
Oh,
and I'll be
yeah.
like I'll be like, "Ha," like, something. I try to give him something.
I mean, it's totally different when you're in a comedy setting and like the whole point is for them to gauge how funny they are. But this is like real world people trying to get me to say whether they're funny or not in a context where it doesn't make any sense to be doing that.
That's
It's so
fair, that's fair. I had a guy
sad.
get really mad at me, uh when I worked at Lowe's in college because,
Uh-huh.
he kept trying to tell this joke that some manager was mad at me, and, he goes, "Hey, just kidding, he's not really mad at you." And I looked him dead in the eyes and I said, "That's a terrible joke. That's not funny." And he didn't talk to me for like a month after that. Literally lost a work friend off of that. We've had our first, technical whatever
Yeah.
malfunction in an episode. My West Virginia Wi-Fi has cut out for the 18th time. Frontier Communications, if you're listening, I want I want your business to go out. Like, I want your business to fail. I hope nobody uses your product anymore. I hope you all lose your jobs. All this. I don't care
Yeah.
anymore.
If they want to be a part of this podcast like they are already, they should be sponsoring it or something. They should be helping
Well,
you
they've
out.
made for enough content because every week I get on here and say West Virginia's senators are supposed to sign this bill to get us broadband internet, and they haven't done it yet. We just reelected them again. Thanks a lot, Shelley Moore Capito. All right, but anyways, the comparing and contrasting the difference in the election, folks. The sun has come up. We are alive. Okay, every state in the United States has not shut down. Okay, we're alive. The country is fine. All right. West Virginia thought the sky was falling. The entire uh, state voted red. They were not happy about the results of the election. New York, however, was dancing in the streets. What was the scene like for you up there?
Oh my god, it was so great. It was one of the best days I have experienced ever. Which I mean, I was happy about the result, but I didn't expect to be like this happy. So for me, I slept in that day. I had like a late night and then so what happened was I woke up to people cheering and hitting pots and pans on my street. Like, I think I'd woken up like an hour before that and checked the news and was like, "Oh, we still don't have an answer." And then I
Yeah.
went back to sleep. And then I woke up to this amazing news. And so that was great. And then me and my roommates went downstairs and everyone was like outside dancing, playing fuck Donald Trump. Uh they're like popping champagne. It was like 11 in the morning or something.
That
It was
sounds
really
awesome.
beautiful.
That sounds fun.
I think what was great about it, ASMR, that like weird response people get to like music and I don't know, hearing people eat chicken or whatever. Do you know what I'm
Yes,
talking
I know
about?
ASMR where people whisper in the
Yeah,
microphone.
that's it. So I felt like the whole day I was having an ASMR response to just the knowledge that like everyone around me was in the same mood. Like I felt like tingly the whole day and just
Uh
this amazing it lasted the whole day. Like I didn't care about anything else. I had to do 3 shows that night. Not had to do. Like I was excited to do them, but
huh.
I was kind of like I don't even care if I bomb at these shows. Like this day has already been amazing. There's no
Yeah.
way it could become a bad day, even if every show was the worst show I've ever done.
I
um,
am with you there though. I felt for the first time in a long time an overwhelming sense of peace. I feel like the country has
yeah,
had reached a tipping point, a boiling point, and somebody just poked a hole in the balloon and just deflated the
finally.
situation.
Yes, that's exactly how I felt. And related to that, I was on vacation the 2 weeks before that. I mean, it was just in New York. I was just had time off of work, right? And
Yeah.
I was so tense and stressed. Like my back was so worked up. And I was like, what's going on with me? I'm on vacation. Like there's no reason I should be this stressed out. And then I think it was all the election because as soon as we got the results, I felt like way I felt way less tense. It was like immediate.
Some of us are still a little bit tense though, Brittany, because some of us have a gambling problem and put money on Biden to win states that have not been called yet somehow.
Oh, shit. Yeah. So you're still
Do
on a Trump. You're still like hoping he never concedes or whatever. Not that that matters.
no, I mean like is has Arizona been called yet? I mean, I'm waiting on a call from Arizona.
Yeah, yeah. How much should you bet?
Oh, we don't have to get into how much I bet. We don't have to get into that.
Your parents know about this. I'm worried about you.
Yeah, oh yeah, they know about it. They're like, "How much did you lose today?" And I'm like, "I won today." All right.
Oh my god, I love your mom's voice. That's so cute.
Oh well, and that's my mom. Well, my mom is actually has like a southernish accent, so I don't know. It's like, "How much did you lose today?" I don't know how she. I can't do it. But anyways, the scene in West Virginia was wild in terms of the Facebook scene was wild, and now people are jumping off Facebook, jumping off Instagram and Twitter, and going to their own.
Off
Other, I saw
cliffs.
something was called like a parlor or something like that. Do you know what that is?
No, what? This is an online environment.
Yeah, this is like supposed to be the new Republican Twitter. It's called like Parlor. I don't know what it is. Is this like a poor man's QAnon? I don't know what it is.
Probably, yeah. It
I was
sounds
hoping I was hoping you might know something. But anyways, West Virginia. So I drove by.
Cracker Barrel or something.
What's that?
It's like a Cracker Barrel, but on the internet. Is that what it's like?
Hey, don't talk smack about Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel is fantastic.
I love Waffle House.
Waffle House is pretty good, but I lean more so towards Cracker Barrel. That's just because that's what I know. You stick with what you know, I guess. But West Virginia, you had these people crying their eyes out, saying how the country was ruined, and then you had people that were tweeting about how, well, Trump still has a couple months left in office, and he's not done yet. Like that matters. But I think the best response I saw to any of this, Trump or Biden, anything, the funniest response, the most comedic response was a local business in my hometown flies three flags outside of I don't know, outside of the place of business. They fly the American flag, they fly a Confederate flag, and they also fly a Trump 2020 flag. But after Trump lost the election, they put the Trump flag at half staff like they were mourning him.
Oh my god. Did you see? You must have seen this. Like they tried to have some kind of press conference, and they tried to book the Hilton, but then they booked like some like lawn
Yeah,
care place.
they put a landscaping business. Yeah,
Yeah,
Giuliani out there with his miscolored hands and
oh
face
my
talking
god,
about oh. Yeah.
that was the funniest thing I've ever seen. And like you can tell, they tried to cover it up. They tried to make it look on camera as though it was like normal by putting so many Trump signs behind Giuliani.
Yeah, they just
Did
like
you see
put
that?
stickers up. They just
Just
put stickers
it
up.
everywhere. Yeah. It looked like the cheapest. You could tell it was a cheap event even when everything else was cropped out.
Right.
He's sweating. It's like too sunny out. He's sweating. He's in this, and then it's like all this plastic behind him.
It looks like when a college landlord tries to renovate a house he's renting out, but he just puts a new coat of white paint on the wall. That's what it was.
Yeah, or just puts up a tapestry or something,
Oh
covering
yeah,
everything
yeah,
else.
yeah. Were you that type of person in college? Did you have the tapestry up or tapestry, whatever?
Oh, my college apartment was shit, but I loved it. It was like what you were supposed to do, you know. I
Where'd you
kind of miss.
go?
I went to an unknown school, Western Washington University. It's in Washington State.
Oh, okay. Western Washington University. Okay, well, that's out. I'm out of moves there.
You. But yeah, I had a really fun time in college. I loved it. Now I have to like I I feel like I still live like a college student sometimes. I mean, my room is like mostly clean, but it's just I still don't have. Okay, so I'm 33, but I don't really live in an adult apartment by myself or anything. I mean, that's partly because I live in New York and it's really hard to live by yourself
Yeah.
here. But I kind of like it. I like not having like a perfect place. Maybe
Really?
you know what it is? That's probably just that's part of that's part of the whole like you know when you kind of enjoy when things are a little bit bad because
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
you know I just realized that's probably why I like it. Like
Yeah,
I want
I was at a wedding one time, and this girl who wasn't getting married was like, "Life's funny because it's bad," and that stuck with me to
yeah,
this day.
that's why I love this place. That's why I love where I'm
It's funny
at.
because it's bad. But so for college for you, were you like? I'm curious about your comedic inspiration. Were you like the person in college that was like in the improv groups? Were you doing mics? Were you writing at your house? Were you into that at all in
Oh,
college?
no. No. I drank a lot in college.
Mm-hmm.
Very unique experience there. No, I was the class clown in high school, which was cool. Like, I mean, I was really serious about school though. I always had this kind of weird like dichotomy, I guess, where I was joking around all the time, but I was also like very serious about schooling.
Yeah.
And I never, me and my friends used to make Saturday Night Live skits on the weekend. So I was like, I was pretty into comedy in high
Oh well,
school.
you're not alone there. My friends and I did that too. One of them's still on
Oh my
YouTube, and
God,
it
so
is
fun.
horrible.
Yours is on YouTube? Oh
Oh,
my God.
it's so bad. It's so bad. I'm not even gonna tell you the name of it. We made it. We were in like sixth, seventh grade. It was bad.
Oh my God. I should put mine on YouTube. It's so bad. But it's like, it's fine because I was in like, I was a freshman or something in high school. What was your skit? I won't try and find it.
Basically, so the premise of the skit was we were really into Lonely Island at the time,
Oh
and
yeah.
so our name was like a rip off of that, I think. And what we did was like we made up a story about how we there was a nerd who beat us up by using his calculator or something like that. It was like the nerd beat up the jocks. The jocks were afraid of the nerd. I don't know. It was
Yeah,
bad.
a calculator because that's the only good calculator.
I think it was a Texas Instrument, if I do believe so. Yeah.
Man, those were so expensive. Like they're not even a thing now. I don't think.
Really?
Or is it? I don't have to use them. I don't know. I assume you do all those calculations on the internet now, right?
That's true. That's true. We're walking around with calculators in our pocket. But
Yeah.
so you did all these. You did the joking around and stuff like that when you were
Oh,
younger. So like, when did you start comedy? Like whenever you moved to a different country?
no. So it took me forever. I think like I was always interested in it, obviously, because I was doing sketches with my friend, and like we used to watch stand up all the time together. We used to watch all the late night talk shows. I loved Conan O'Brien. I'd like stay up all the time just to watch him.
Yeah, I
Um,
was a Conan kid. Yep.
I think it was a thing where it's like, you don't really know that you can actually do comedy. Like when you see that stuff, you're like, oh yeah, haha, that looks fun, but it doesn't seem like anything you could really do as a
Yeah.
job. So I didn't even think about it. And I went to school and I was like, yeah, I want to be a doctor or something. And then I didn't really like those classes and I ended up like doing research in psychology. And I really liked that because, well, basically, I I realized like I don't want to stop going to school because I feel like once I stop doing research, my creativity is going to be like stunted. Like right
Yeah.
now I'm doing research and I can like explore whatever questions I want to and that's what I really want to keep doing the rest of my life. And so that was kind of my goal was to just keep doing that. So then I went into New Zealand to do a PhD, so I was still like not doing comedy at all. Like I was totally just focused on I wanted to
Yeah.
be a professor. I was like I'm going to keep doing research the rest of my life. I want to be able to explore whatever. Um, and so I finished all that, and we can talk about the thesis if you want later. But then I started to realize like it's not true that you get to be creative in that job. Like you
Yeah.
don't get to be creative as a professor doing research until you are like 60 years old when you have tenure or maybe
Mhm.
50. And by that time I was like, what if I don't even care about this anymore? So I just started to see like it's not exactly what I thought it was going to be. And at
Mhm.
the same time, I started doing stand up and I was like, oh, I can do stand up and immediately do whatever I want and get feedback immediately. And I love working alone as well. Like
Yeah.
I always hated like I like some collaborative projects when I trust people, but for the most part, I like to be in a lot of control over like what happens.
Yeah.
So that was like another thing. It's like, oh, this is like all me. And yeah, and then so I started doing stand up and I kind of was like, yeah, I don't want to be a professor anymore. And so I moved to New York and started doing comedy. So I guess
S- s-
your question was when did I start? I started like 5 years ago, but I
mhm.
started in New Zealand. Have you been out there or anywhere near there, like Australia?
Been to no, I actually I've been thinking about this a lot. I don't even know if I could date a woman that lived that's family was from Australia because that ungodly travel. That is such a
Oh,
long trip. I don't know if I could do it.
I thought you were gonna say the accent. A lot of people don't like
No,
the
uh,
accents.
no, I love the accent. I think the accent's great.
I love the accent too, but you know what it is? Like I think New Zealanders hate Australians' accents, and Australians hate New Zealanders. Because in New Zealand, it's like New Zealanders are the Canada kind of, and Australia is the U.S.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so they kind of treat each other that way. Like I think Australia doesn't care that much, but New Zealand feels a little bit like hurt all the time and like it's the
Yeah.
little brother or something. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, the furthest I don't know, overseas I've been is Spain or Germany. I don't know which one's further that way. So that's my extent of travel. I don't really do much traveling.
Oh, yeah, I can't tell which one's further either. Like my cognitive map's all distorted.
Right.
I feel
But
like Germany's.
actually, yeah, it probably is Germany. But do you take your scientific background? Do you take sort of a scientific method to your approach to creating jokes? Like, are you breaking down syllables? Are you breaking down these LPMs, these laughs per minute? Do you think the
Oh
like
no.
words with the C sound are funniest? Like, are you breaking it down like that?
Oh my god. I would say not regularly. Like I think about those things sometimes, but I'm not the kind of person that has an Excel sheet with laughs per minute or, like
That's the thing with me. It's because I worked at like baseball scouting and I did analytics. It's like I'm playing
yeah,
Moneyball with comedy.
yeah. Oh, so do you have Excel sheets?
I mean, not for comedy, but like for a bunch of other stuff. Yeah, for
Yeah.
absolutely useless things.
Same here. Like I'm very organized in a lot of areas of my life, but I feel like applying exactly the same thing to comedy makes it feel like it's just more work. Like if I was making Excel sheets with laughs per minute, I feel like I would start to hate it.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Well,
yeah,
you would break it down so much to where there wouldn't be like it wouldn't be organic. It would just be like cooked,
yeah,
overcooked. Blah.
yeah. And I don't know. Like I do actually. Sometimes I'll use names that start with K because I am aware of the whole K sound thing. So if I
Yeah.
have the opportunity, I'll be like, I might as well do that. If it's gonna make it like slightly funnier, then of course I'll change Michael to Keith or something. Um, but no, I'm not very. I don't know. At first, it used to bother me that I wasn't systematic enough about comedy because it is kind of like you need to be really organized in a lot of ways. But then every time I tried, it did kind of like stilt me. Like right
Mhm.
now, I have like 50 notebooks and a bunch of Word documents and a bunch of notes on my phone, and none of them make any sense. They're just
Oh
like
yeah. Yeah, dude. If
random.
someone saw my yellow legal pads, they thought I was probably like a Unabomber type guy writing a manifesto. It just
I
makes no sense.
know. Same. And it used to really, really bother me. And I would sit down every few months and be like, okay, I have to compile everything and everything's going to be on one clean document. And I'm going to have all these like different sections of the document where like part of it will represent this is a fully done joke. And then the other jokes will be in
Wow.
another, whatever. So I used to try to do that all the time, but it was so hard to categorize things. And then as you know, like even when you think you're done with a joke, like you've been doing it for years, it will still change. It's like it's never going to be at a final stage, so there's no reason to for me to waste time like trying to be like I'm done with this, now I'm going
Mhm.
to do this, and so I kind of stopped doing that. I still go back through my material a lot, like old notes, especially when
Oh
I'm
yeah.
kind of like I don't have any new thoughts, and I'm like, I know I had good thoughts a year ago.
Oh,
Sometimes I'll,
I'm sort of in that camp right now. I mean, like I've written a bunch of new stuff, but it's like, how is it
yeah,
in comparison to my other stuff? Because I don't have the opportunity to get out and like try it. So it's like, like which is best? It's very odd.
definitely. Yeah. Do you listen to? There's a podcast called "Let's Talk About Sets." Have you
I've
listened to it
heard of it,
before?
but honestly, ironically, I don't listen to a ton of podcasts. It's very weird.
Yeah, I don't either actually. But I like that one. I listen to that one quite a bit. So I think a lot about like I feel like I am constantly analyzing comedy, but
Hmm.
I'm not sitting down and like doing the math of it. Like I never feel like I'm doing that, but I'm constantly thinking about it. Do you know what
Well,
I mean?
yeah, I do know what you mean because it's like anytime you have a conversation with somebody, a random person, and like they laugh, it's like, oh, I got to make a note of that. That could be something. Or you hear something on the news and you think of an anecdote to add in your mind. You're like, oh, make a note of that. I know what you
Yeah.
mean.
Oh, but so I think your question, you started out asking how it was similar to science. Um, so I told you the ways that I'm not analytical about it, but like there are a lot of ways that like my science career I feel like has set me up for doing stand up comedy, which I wouldn't have expected. Do you want to hear about that too?
Yeah, of course. The people want to hear, Brittany. The people want to know
Oh, yeah.
about you.
If you're in a career in science right now and you're not happy, here's how you can
My
apply.
listeners, I will say this. I will say this, Brittany. My listeners are a very intelligent bunch. They are well read. A lot of them have graduated college, have nice jobs. That is my audience.
Good. Yeah, well, if you're unhappy in your career in science, here's how you tweak your resume to support a comedy career. I'm kind of making that up. No one uses resumes in comedy. Like, I mean, I guess some people do. You have bios, but sometimes I'll
Yeah.
go to people's websites and they have like a Word document of a resume of comedy stuff,
What?
which I don't know. Maybe I'm just not high up enough yet to have needed
No, I
a
mean some
doc.
people definitely do. I know actors. I know actors will do that. I had some actor friends that did
Yeah,
stuff like that.
I think it makes sense for acting because like there is more of like an application process, but when it comes to comedy, it's more like, oh no, you just get booked a bunch and then yeah, like someone might want you to be on TV because they liked your stuff or whatever, right? I don't
Right.
know. I'm half making this up. But anyway,
But back to the jokes.
yeah. So I did a PhD in cognitive psychology, thinking I was going to be a professor, and I guess the overlap with comedy is like, well, there are so many. So for one thing, there's lots of public speaking. Like that's pretty obvious. I had to give
Yeah.
talks all the time about like my projects and what we think's going on, and you have to like learn how to tell a story in an engaging way and all that. So I feel like I didn't have stage fright. Well, I had stage fright, but it wasn't as severe as I think it is for a lot of people when they first start because I had been giving talks for like 8 years
Yeah.
basically in front of like big crowds. So that was fine. It was more, how do I now do that and talk about personal stuff instead of talking about like some bar graphs that I made with an Excel file. So that's fine. And then I don't know, I guess the other parts that are similar is like when I was doing like experiments on people and looking at how photos are going to affect their beliefs about their past.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so, like with the experiments, you end up, I mean, there's a lot of creativity there where you're like, okay, what's the premise? The premise is pretty much the hypothesis in the experiment. Like, what do we think is true about the world, or what we want to know is true?
Mhm.
And then you have to like test it. You have to figure out how to test it. So you develop this design for your experiment, and you think it's going to like answer a question, right? That part's slightly different because testing in comedy is more like you think you came up with an answer to the premise, which is your punchline, and you want
Uh-huh.
to know if other people agree. So that's like the testing in comedy. And also, just like with science, you can't just test it one time. You have to have like a bunch of data in order to know the answer.
Ooh. I like it.
And so if you tested it on one person, that's not reliable at all. So you have to like you have to do 20 mics or whatever. And
Right.
at different mics,
Small
you're going
sample
to get a
size
different.
doesn't work.
Exactly. So you have to like get like this big distribution of data, which is all of the times you've tried your joke, and kind of like estimate how well it works based on all these responses.
Now, do
So
you take note
in
of
some
that? Do you take
ways,
note like an actual document? You're like, okay, it's set here, not good. Set here, good. And then like, do you do it like that?
yeah, I used to in the beginning. I used to write down every joke that I did at a mic, and afterwards I would put like a check mark if it worked or not, and I might even give it some kind of score. But I just
Wow.
can't do that now. Like it's way too much effort, and that was back when I was doing way fewer mics and shows, so I just had a lot more time to like do these like analyses, I guess.
Yeah.
But
And
I
now
was
you're
never
just having
in
to
that.
like to pound the pavement. You're getting them out, and you're just like, okay, move on.
Yeah, I mean now it's more like you kind of just notice it and you go, okay, okay, and then I feel like it's a lot more intuition now, and
Hmm.
I'm kind of keeping track, but it's not like something that's in the front of my mind, really.
Yeah.
Oh, like I mean, and you notice little things too. Like I have this joke that has been like working consistently ever since I started telling it. I probably told it like 50 times now, and it worked every time, almost to the same level, like when I started, which is surprising because it usually doesn't
Yeah.
work that well the first time you do it. But this one worked every time, and I've been like, okay, this is like so reliable. I can't believe it. And then I did it the other day, and the audience happened to be like 90% women, and the joke like did not work.
What?
And yeah, and then as I was telling it, I was like, "Oh, I've never done it in front of only women." And there's something about them. I have to tweak it. If I ever have a lot of women again, I have to find a way to tell the joke differently. Maybe.
That's wild. That's wild.
But it's like it's funny how even a joke you think is like perfect, like eventually there will be someone in your sample who you still have to like tweak it for.
That's true. The
um,
joke I always like to say, there's always that WIP banner over top of my joke. It's always a work in progress.
yeah, 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 totally.
And as for me, with my baseball stuff like that, it's like
Mhm.
I've always thought of parallels between baseball and comedy because the good professionals are consistent day in day out type of guys. The ones that people remember like minimize damage, like whenever they have a bad night, they just move on. Especially
Yeah.
with pitching, because you're gonna go out there every night that you pitch, and you might not have your best stuff, but somehow you work around it and you rely on other things maybe to get it done. And then other times when you're hitting your spots and you're grooving, it's like, all right, I'm on top of the world. There's a lot of parallels between baseball.
Oh yeah, you just reminded me of another like a similar thing. Um, with like research is there's tons of rejection. So I got really
Mm,
used to that in my career too. Like you're trying to well, first of all, your experiments might fail. So then you're like failing a bunch and then you have to like try new stuff. And then when you have something great, you try and publish it and then you get rejected from every journal or
yeah.
whatever, or you don't get into like a postdoc program you wanted. It's always like or even if you have something great, the the feedback is super critical. It's like going to open mics sometimes when you're at a conference trying to talk about your data, and then
Uh-huh.
everyone's like, "Yeah," everyone like likes it, but they're like, "Yeah, but this wasn't that funny or whatever,"
Yeah,
or
but
like
it's
this.
not for me. They just think it's good. It's just not for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so like, I guess I got really used to never being good enough, which is the whole career. And
No,
writing. I was writing a lot doing that stuff, and you kind of have to make it a habit. Like I had to write every day if I was going to get my manuscripts done and try and get
mhm,
them published. And so I kind of like was already in that habit when I started doing comedy. And so I try to write every day. I feel like I'm doing worse and worse at it lately, but like that's my main thing. Is like I don't wait for like inspiration because I know that I will just never sit
yeah,
down and write. I'm waiting that
yeah,
long. And I think that's super important. And like a lot of people don't realize you have to just like sit and write. And every time I do sit down and write, even if it's 10 minutes, like normally something important comes out, even if it's a
right.
small thing. Yeah.
Oh, there's
What's
there's
your
plenty
writing?
of nights where I sit down, I play my jazz records, I get on my pen and paper, and I just start, and I just pray I reach a finish line at some point where in the middle of
Yeah,
the maze, I'm just like, oh, there's something in there.
yeah, exactly. Sometimes I just set a timer for like 30 minutes and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to at least sit here for 30 minutes typing stuff.
You seem like a very
And
ritualistic person. Like you have like a lot of these set beliefs and ideas. Like, so whenever you write and everything, like does everything have to be perfect and in a certain way before you can start?
no, 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 no. I am like ritualistic in some ways, but I know that that's not realistic. Like if everything was perfect, I would never start because nothing's ever perfect.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I after oftentimes it's just sitting down and writing something. So even if I just write whatever thoughts I'm having, even if I start writing about how I don't feel like I'm being funny right now and it sucks that I have to write or whatever. Like if I
Yeah.
just start writing, I think that's it. Is like I know that that ritual can lead to things coming out even when I feel like shit or like I don't feel funny. So, yeah, in a way it's a ritual. Like I know that it'll work somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, for me it's just I put on my music, and I just like I
Mhm.
just sit there, and I used to be really really hard on myself. It's like if my room wasn't like spotless, I couldn't like
Oh,
focus and write. Like that was my whole thing.
oh, that definitely helps. I like my room to be clean before I work on stuff, but I don't know. I don't have to. I'm like really neurotic, but at the same time I'm like really messy. So I have all these like rituals that I do, but I'm really messy about them. Like I
Mhm.
was telling you, all my documents are like illegible and Well, the written ones are illegible to most people, and I can barely even understand them because it's just like a bunch of crazy rants, and I'm like writing in the margins and stuff. And
Yeah.
then everything is like so dispersed. I don't even know what the most recent ideas are or anything. So like I'm really messy, but I'm also like really organized at the same time.
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, you have everything set how you like it. I understand how that works. I would do
Yeah.
want to get back to this though because you reference you might be able to talk about it later. Your thesis project with the cognitive psychology and everything was what was the whole project you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, okay. So this stuff is scary. Are you ready? It's like a
No,
scary movie we're about to go into.
I want the listeners to learn. This is a
All right,
funny but
everybody.
also informative
This,
episode.
this is a warning. This is scary stuff. So, okay. We're going to start out light. This part's not very scary, okay?
Okay.
Have you ever like looked back at a photo album from your childhood and you see some pictures of you maybe like at your like fourth birthday or something? You've done that before, right? And you're like, "Oh, there I am. We had like a water fight party." I'm thinking of my own picture. We had a water balloon. We had a water fight that day, and I was in my swimsuit, and it was so. Look how fun it was! It was so fun. Remember those people from when I was
Oh
4 or
yeah.
5 years old? Yeah, and like that's such a normal thing to do, right? But and this is actually like a technique that some therapists will use to try and get people to remember events from their past. They'll be like, look through your photo albums and try and remember things that have happened to you before
Uh-huh.
with these pictures, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Like they're doing that in like a good, they have like a good, intention is that they want to try and like remember things that might have led to the patterns or the feelings that you have today or whatever. But there is also the possibility that doing that kind of thing can lead you to remember information or events that never happened. So, like when
Hmm.
you are looking at that picture of your birthday party with the balloon fight, you're 4 years old. You probably don't really remember much at all, but the photo is giving you a lot of like details that you can use to kind of construct a story around that event, like
N-
who you might have been with or what might have happened. Like if I told you, oh, someone threw a balloon at you and it hit you in the eye and you started bleeding and then the birthday party was ended or whatever and you had to go inside. Like I could tell you that and you could then imagine how that might have happened because you have elements from the photo
r-
that help
Right.
you imagine the scene, right? So there's a bunch of research showing that that kind of thing happens all the time. Like you can do experiments where you show people a photo like that and like you ask people to recall, for example, 4 different events that happened in their childhood. And the researcher knows that one of those events is false, like the balloon event or whatever, the
Yeah.
water fight event. And the other 3 really did happen. So they'll be like, okay, we just want you to tell us your memory of these 4 events. Just tell us what you remember. And then the person will tell them what they remember. And then over like 3 weeks, the interviewer will ask them about those events. And over time, people start remembering that they actually had the event that didn't happen. So the birthday party thing or
What?
whatever. Yeah. And like, at first, they'll tell you in the first interview, they'll be like, oh, I have no idea. I don't remember that at all. That's weird. Right. And then in the second interview, they're like, oh, I can remember. Like, I remember Brandon. Yeah, he's the one that threw the balloon at me or whatever. They'll just like, they'll start adding all these details. And then over the course of like 3 weeks, people will tell you in full detail exactly what happened at that birthday party that like never happened. So I'm giving you this birthday party example when in reality, like the research I'm thinking of, they made up some other scenario that they knew had not happened to the person in their past, and they
Uh-huh.
confirmed this with the parents. So they know like this is a false event. In my case, like I'm actually thinking of a real party that happened to me. But
Well, are you sure that you're remembering real party?
well, I know the party happened. I don't actually have this memory of getting hit in the eye. I just
You're
made it up
bending
for
the
this.
story to fit the narrative there. It's weird. It's creepy.
But I am actually combining that picture with me getting stung in the eye by a bee as a kid. And like I think that also did happen to me, but I think my memory of it is false because I was like 3 years old. So I
Yeah.
think I just remember what my parents told me, and then I imagined that happening to me. But
So you're
anyway,
saying
like,
that people I think nostalgia can be sort of like this drug for people where they look at things in the past and they think it's like things are so much better than what they are now, and really they just like forget about the bad things. And is there any sort of like relation with
Yeah, and
that?
like,
And
oh yeah, I mean, oh, I have more to say about the false memory thing, but yeah, we can talk about that too. So, I mean, part of that is that you look at photos of the past, and most photos you took are going to be positive in nature, right? No one's like
Mhm.
got photo albums of all their
Oh, my
horrible
grandpa
surgery.
died. Here's a photo of him in his bed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just less like we don't want to take photos of that kind of thing. So your memory will be distorted in some way because the kinds of images we try to remember tend to be positive in the first
Uh huh.
place. But there's also this like general memory bias where we do remember. Um, oh, you were talking about the past. I was thinking about there's like a general bias to remember positive stuff. There are way too many versions of this for me to give you a concrete answer because like on the one hand, we negative information stands out like way more than positive information. You know when you're like critiqued, like you let's say you submitted a report for school or whatever and you get feedback from your professor
Uh huh.
and they give you like a bunch of positive feedback. They're like, this is great. This is a really good idea you wrote here, or whatever. And then there's like one thing they said that they thought could use improvement. That's the thing that sticks in your mind. And that's
Yeah.
like a tendency we have is to focus on those like on the negative. So it has so much more power than the positive. They even apply this to like relationships where if you and your partner like it's like some proportion. Like for every one negative comment, there have to be like five positive comments. Otherwise, the relationship is going to fall apart because the negative comment
Wow.
has so much more power than any of those positive comments. So, like, to answer your question, that's one part is like in some ways we remember negative stuff or it has more influence over us than positive stuff. Am I telling you too much right now? Is this too much
No,
information?
I'm attentively listening. That's the thing. It's like the reason I'm not like trying to like chime in and butt in with some dumb joke is because like I'm genuinely interested in this. Like
Yeah.
I'm on like this search for everything. I'm on this never-ending quest where I have to figure out all information ever. And so like you telling me more about like cognitive psychology is just like baffling to me.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
interested.
Hopefully I'm getting this right too. I hope like researchers don't some
You're the one
researchers
with the
gonna listen.
PhD. What do you mean you hope you're getting it right?
Well, because like my PhD was in a very specific part of all this, so it's like I'm just remembering the literature I read, but I'm pretty sure I'm remembering this correctly. So yeah, on the one hand, I remember like negative stuff really well, but then there's like this whole other area of research where we feel like we're improving all the time. Like, you know, when you look back on your past and you're like, what an idiot. I was like, I thought that trees, I don't know, like you have like dumb thoughts. I have a couple jokes about this actually. Like that's a lot of
I
what I
just
like
always
to
say that
talk
I
about.
would go back in time and beat myself up if I could, because I just think 14-year-old me was an idiot.
Yeah. So like people have this perception that they personally are getting better all the time. And I can't remember how this was tested, but apparently there's evidence that we don't really change that much. I mean, you obviously change in your like general knowledge and what you know about the world and understand. But
Yeah.
I think this was more in terms of like it might have been that they were measuring like personal characteristics like happiness or something like oh I'm so much happier now than I was 5 years ago when in reality people are pretty similar. So there's
Yeah.
that other bias where it's kind of like we need to see improvement because like you need to believe that you're progressing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what are you know, like that's a lot of what depression is in my mind is like when I feel like I'm just stuck somewhere. And so it's almost like it's a bias to believe that you're improving, but it's like helpful for us evolutionarily because we're not going to just sit around and feel depressed.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah. But then there, like you said, there's also nostalgia where you can also just, you feel really positive about
Well, I think a
oh,
lot
that's
of people in my generation just have nostalgia for things that they didn't live through. Like, they have nostalgia for 80s music and 80s clothes, but they didn't live through Reaganomics. They don't know what it was like back then.
yeah, they have no idea. And like, yeah, again, the positive parts of the 80s are represented now because we don't want
Because
to.
people, kids watch Stranger Things and they're like, "Oh my god, that was so cool back then." It's like you don't know anything about that. I have a question about uh sort of my personal development, cognitively speaking. So for me and my journey to be a professional comedian and everything, so my dad was a professional public speaker, and I got to watch him every week for an hour. He did an hour like every week. He did a he was a pastor
What was
some.
he? What was he speaking about?
Well, he was a businessman, but he was also a pastor. So like he'd work
Okay.
for Pepsi, and he would give these
Yeah.
speeches, and then he would also like preach on Sundays, and I'd watch him do an hour of material. Do you think like me as a young kid watching him get on stage and entertain people for an hour like had to do something to make me be like I want to do that?
Oh, probably. You're probably like, yeah, this is what life is. You get up. That's funny. That's really funny. He was a pastor and he spoke for Pepsi. Did he ever
Yep.
accidentally start doing Pepsi material at church?
He's like, all right, we got this new product out called Gatorade G2. Oh, sorry, that's my other job, folks. First
Yeah.
Ezekiel says, yeah,
Yeah, that's funny. No, I think there's probably something to that. Like, I feel like watching entertainment is the main way to. It's so fun, and like, yeah, pastors are very entertaining.
yeah.
Uh, yeah,
Well, some of them are crocs. Some of them just like to steal money. Some of them I don't like at all. Like that one
yeah.
pastor. Who was that one pastor on the news this week who was just like he's like Joe Biden's president, ha ha ha, like
Oh my
laughing.
god, I saw it too. Yeah, I watched it. I watched the Daily Show last night, so I saw all the important events that happened. Um,
That guy's such a loser. He says he can't
oh
fly
my
on a public plane because it's full of demons. So he has to fly private and just steal people's money. It makes me so mad. The big business and religion. I hate
yeah,
big business and
it's
religion.
it's crazy. Does your dad tell jokes?
Oh yeah. Oh, that's half of his sermons are just jokes. Oh my gosh. He literally is up there doing material.
Do you end up doing a lot of jokes that are related to religion because of that, or do you
No,
try not
I don't like that.
to
I don't really like to joke
or
about religion a lot. I think that's a big like I work mostly clean too, but like I don't like to joke about religion just because like I know there's people out there that live and die by it and would
yeah,
get just like who am I to say my God is the right one and their God's the wrong one? I do have a
yeah,
joke about Jesus being a socialist though, which I think is funny.
nice. But what about so like I mean, I'm basing this on pastors I've seen before who tell jokes, and they'll tell like Bible related jokes. Do you have any of those?
No,
Like
not
they're
at
not
all.
against
No.
religion. Oh, okay.
He most of his jokes are honestly just crowd work. Like he'll just find somebody in the crowd and be like, "Brother Paul knows what I'm talking about," and then the crowd's like, "Ha ha ha."
He's just like, isn't that right, guy in the button up polo
Yeah,
shirt
that's
or whatever.
literally it. He's doing a lot of crowd work. Like he's not be like when Daniel was in the or Daniel was in the lion's den, or was it David? Is Dan?
Yeah, I don't even know. I
See,
feel like Daniel
this is like see like obviously I'm not gonna make any religion jokes. I don't even know the stories of the Bible. Jeez.
is all your dad's crowd work just about what people are wearing, or does he say like, is anyone here from out of town? Like the classic one.
No, like
Oh,
sometimes no
I'll
the
send
big
Jesus.
joke with go ahead.
Oh, I said, is anyone selling a birthday tonight or celebrating a birthday tonight? Right?
No, a lot of the jokes pastors tell, it's all like the same recycled stuff. So if you're a white pastor, you'll start out by saying, "And I won't keep you here too long today, folks. I know
Oh,
kickoff
yeah,
is in
yeah,
an hour."
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah. All stuff.
that's the big joke.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard that stuff before. That's funny.
So your cognitive development, was there anything that like led you to want to be a comedian?
Okay, so here's something I think happened, which is maybe similar to you seeing your dad entertain and then getting into comedy. When I was doing research in undergrad, I went to my cognitive psychology class, and my professor was like so entertaining and funny. And I was just watching him and I loved it. And I was like, I want to do that. That's exactly what I want to do. But when I was looking at him, I must have what I thought I wanted to do and what I was seeing was be a professor, do research. But now
Oh.
and then the same thing happened when I decided to do a PhD. I met my supervisor at a research conference, and she gave the keynote address, and she was hilarious and entertaining. and I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna work with her. That's exactly what I want to do, and she's my mentor because like that's exactly how I want to be. But
Right.
again, I was thinking I want to do research because that's what she did. And now that I've done comedy, I'm like, it's so obvious that what I thought I wanted at the time was, or what I wanted at the time was actually to be an entertainer. I didn't want to be a professor, but that's what they were like wrapped in professor stuff. Like all their comedy was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of like your dad he's a pastor, but he's telling jokes, he's entertaining people. And so you see that and
So
you're like,
so would you so the comedians that you like to watch the most, would are they like sort of like the take a scientific method to it? Are they very cerebral with their, word choice and movements and everything?
no, I like I feel like I like a huge variety, and I never know how to answer this question. But I think one thing that is pretty consistent across the people I like. So I really like Nathan Fielder. You know him?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
He does that show Nathan for You. That's like one of my favorite TV shows ever.
That's
Um,
good stuff. He's funny.
oh my god, he's so funny. So like I would say that matches up in some ways because he has
So
like these like,
so you like a very dry type of thing.
well, yeah, I mean, I also like not dry stuff, but I think the reason I like him so much is because it's so stupid and smart at the same time. Like I love when those two things come together. And
That's a very good way to describe it. It's so dumb it's smart, or it's so smart it's dumb. I don't know. But like the whole
those are
bit
some of
about
my
the fake
favorites.
Starbucks or whatever, what was it
Oh,
called?
dumb Starbucks, yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
one. And
I mean, that's perfect.
yeah, and then I really liked what was it called? Smoking Aloud. Did you watch
I
that
don't
one?
I don't think I know that one.
Oh, that one is so good. You should watch it. He's trying to find a way to allow customers to smoke inside because the bar owner at this place is like, yeah, I get fewer customers now that smoking is illegal inside or whatever. So he finds a loophole that if you do a play in the bar, then the actors can smoke, right? Because it's like part
Yeah.
of some law. So then he sets up chairs in the corner of the bar and gets this audience to watch regular bar people in the bar just hanging out for like 3.5 hours. And so the people hanging out in the bar are smoking because they're like
It's like
technically
they're part of it.
right. And so, oh my god, you should watch this episode. I'm not even doing it justice. It's so funny. So like that ends up working fine. And then And then oh, then another funny aspect of it is that the audience thought it was a real play. So then he interviews the audience afterwards and he's like, "What do you think about the play?" And some people were like, "Oh, it sucked. It was so boring. It was like nothing was happening." But then other people are like, "Oh, it reminded me of this other like famous, theater person." And they're getting all like it's like when people try and describe wines, the taste of wines that are
Oh
actually
my gosh, yeah, some douches out there being like, it took me to a different place, so
yeah, and they're like, "Yeah, this is like grocery store wine." So, like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Sir, you're drinking Franzia. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, and then he goes even further. So, then he's like, "Oh, the play went so great. I think we should just try and recreate exactly what happened here tonight for other people." So then he brings in actors, a bunch of actors to play the roles of the people that were in the bar in the first place. And to
Wow.
recreate every moment. So it's like a 3-hour play. So he brings all these actors in, and they have to study all the interactions that they saw, and then they recreate it. And oh man, it's just so funny. I love that show. I've watched. I feel like I've watched it over and over. Like I don't even know how many times I've watched
The
the show.
commitment to that bit is unreal. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. I think maybe that's part of why I like him too, because he commits so hard, and then he thinks of such funny angles, and I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah.
I would My dream would be to work on a show with him. He would be, and I love awkward stuff as well. Like he's perfect in all
I'm
those
trying to
situations.
think of, like, so do you like guys like Dimitri Martin? Was that one of your guys?
I never got really into him. I do like him, but I never like watched a lot of his stuff.
Mhm.
Um, another person I like, I guess because he has that kind of dumb smart contrast, is Nate Bargatze. You like him?
Oh my gosh. Okay, now we're talking. Let's talk. Let's this Nate talk section. I love it.
Yeah, let's do this. What's your favorite bit?
Oh, the classic Starbucks. He's like, just give it to me, okay,
Oh,
please. And he's just like,
the
yeah.
milk thing? Yeah, that one's good. My
He's
parents really liked him too, so that was nice. We can sort of bond over that.
well, he's clean. That's why I like him.
Yeah, he's clean. Yeah. I like his climate change bit. Did you see that one?
Oh, I don't remember. I'll have to look it up. I don't think so.
I feel like I'm not gonna remember how it goes well enough, but
Don't worry about it. But Nate, I like Nate. He did a show with some West Virginia like country music like legend. So like that's when I first got introduced to him. Like saw him, and I didn't
mhm.
meet him formally, but like I saw him, and I was just like,
Yeah,
oh okay, like this guy's really like really smart. He's dry. It's fine, but like he's clean. But you don't know he's clean until you realize like he didn't like curse or anything. It's wild. And
yeah, you're
so
right. Yeah.
that's what I would like to try to get to. It's like to the point where it's like, wow, that set was so good. I didn't realize like he was did work clean. So that's why I admire Nate so much. I'd like to emulate something like that.
Yeah, he's so good.
Yeah, Nate's the best. Nate's the best. He's one of my favorites. Before we go here, you had one more point, and I'd hate to like leave a loose end out there for the people that like listened for like the science aspect of this episode. Could you close off that like study that you were talking about?
Oh yeah, so with the false memory study, yeah, so what I was saying, right, so I was saying that so you have these four events and people think that the false one is true by the end of it, right? Like they come up with all these details and the details sound like a real memory and people believe it
Hmm.
happened. And I guess I just wanted to add because this is like what's really striking about it is that the researchers at the end of the study they'll be like, okay, we tricked you, we gave you four events to recall but only one of them, well, or one of them is actually false. We want you to tell us which one of those didn't actually happen to you. And what's crazy is that the participants will choose at chance the false event, so they can't distinguish between the false event that they made up with the picture compared to the true events that really happened to them. So that's what's really scary is it's not like people are like, "Oh yeah, I might have
That
had
is
this happen to
scary.
me in my past." They're like, "Oh, this happened to me in my past and I believe it just as much as things that actually did happen to me."
That
So
is
I don't
scary because it's like I'm thinking of every picture I've ever been shown of me in elementary school, and I'm like, what
know. Yeah,
really happened?
your brain is like set up to try and fill in gaps, and so like we look at pictures and we just start like imagining and pretending and stuff like that, and it's usually good because it can help you predict things or think about things that probably did happen, but then in a lot of cases you're just like making stuff up, and it really becomes consequential, like when it comes to the legal system where now people are relying on your memory, but your memory's been distorted because someone asked you to look at a picture and think about the possibility over time, and what you're remembering is actually just your imagination of the event that you like you imagined the event weeks ago and now you remember your imagination.
Oh
Like
my
we
gosh.
have a very hard time separating imagery from actual memories, especially when the images are so imbued with like details. And in the case with the photos, that's what the photos do. They put so many details in there that it's even harder to distinguish them from a real event.
So you're
So it's
saying like
really scary.
say in a court of law somebody shows
Mhm.
a photo of a murder scene, would like I'm lost as to like would the person that did the murder like have a weird memory of it, or would like the jury have a weird memory of it? Like who
Yeah,
would?
it can be both sides. So there is a problem in with a what is it called? False confessions. So you
Yeah.
can get people to falsely confess to murdering or doing some other kind of crime. It doesn't have to be with a photo, but a photo can make it more likely. Like if anything that makes it easier for them to imagine it happening and then to later recall that will kind of like boost that. It'll make them more inclined to eventually falsely confess. A lot of false confessions, though, it's like those happen over time. There's lots of suggestibility going on there, like the
Yeah.
investigator telling them there's no way out, or if you just tell us that you did this, then we're going to give you an easier sentence or whatever. But there are cases
Oh,
where
well, yeah, I mean, well, if you wanna get into
confessing
the whole legal system thing,
yeah,
yeah, where you have to take these
oh, there's so
plea
many
deals
problems.
and you get
Yeah,
screwed.
So some of them are just like, oh, we're going to make things easier, but then other times it's actually that people will develop a whole memory of doing it, and then they don't even think they're falsely confessing. They think they are confessing to a crime that they committed, but they actually didn't. So it's pretty wild. But
Wow.
you asked about the jurors as well. Like, I don't know about specific studies there, but I think potentially, like, if a juror saw an image of the crime scene, it might make it easier for them to imagine whatever claims are being made. So it might make it easier for them to imagine the suspect there.
The prosecuting attorney is just like they show this picture of the crime scene and then they tell this story as they're showing the
Yeah.
picture and the jury is just like, "Oh yeah, that does make
Yeah, yeah,
sense."
yeah. Yeah, so that would most likely make the jury more inclined to believe that the story is true, or,
Wow.
that that event might have happened. It's all like, so see, I told you guys this was gonna be scary.
That is
No
scary, but it also makes me but it also helps me because now it makes me realize that I definitely could have been a lawyer. I mean, I've watched Lincoln Lawyer enough, and now I know this. I would win every case. It's a layup.
Oh, yeah, just show a picture, you're in. Yeah. Yeah, let's use
No,
this for bad. Let's do it.
oh my gosh. Oh, this episode was really interesting. Like, I just love talking to intelligent people, and you're much more intelligent than myself, like I said. And like
Oh,
this
come on.
whole like the inner workings of the mind and how we have these false memories and everything. This type of thing is gonna keep me up at night. Like it's gonna make me like rethink everything that I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, you could, like, listen to this podcast or watch a thriller, and then you'll be up all night either way.
This one's definitely gonna make people think, but I really appreciate you coming on, Brittany. Is there any parting words that you would like to leave the people?
Oh, just thanks so much for having me. And yeah, follow me on Instagram. Come to my comedy shows if you're in New York. They're every Tuesday and Saturday in Brooklyn. Right now, we're running them on rooftops. We might be indoors someday in a year, probably.
Thank you, Brittany, for being on the show today. It was a great episode, very interesting. Hope you guys learned a thing or two. This was probably the first time I brought somebody on that can speak at length of something like this. This is really interesting stuff here, folks. But hope you all are having a great day and stay safe out there. And I will see you when I see you.